why many landlords are exiting the real estate market, and what it means for you. A surprising trend is emerging in the real estate world. More landlords are pulling out of the market, and not for the reasons you might assume. It's not a housing crash or a new regulation driving this exodus. It's something deeper, a combination of disillusionment, misaligned expectations, and a return to reality. Many people who bought rental properties within the last 5 to 10 years are beginning to realize that being a real estate investor isn't as simple or lucrative as they believed. With housing inventory gradually increasing across many regions in the U.S., some property owners are rethinking their long-term strategies. If you've been eyeing an investment property, now is a great time to observe what's happening. But more importantly, you need to understand why these landlords are choosing to sell. Stick around until the end of this overview, because we'll cover one critical mistake that can ruin any investment strategy, regardless of how strong the market looks on paper. Rents aren't growing like they used to. One of the biggest shocks to newer investors is how much rental income growth has slowed down. During the pandemic, there was a frenzy of buying, especially in areas that saw massive population growth or migration. Investors jumped in headfirst expecting rents to rise sharply year after year, and for a time they did, but that streak didn't last forever. Today, rents have plateaued in many places and even declined in some. That's in line with broader economic trends like inflation leveling off and consumer spending tightening. Cities that were booming from 2020 to 2022 are now seeing stagnant or falling rents. That's a major problem for landlords who bought at peak prices, assuming they'd be able to cover high monthly costs with rising rent income. Let's say a landlord bought a property with $5,000 in monthly expenses, mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and expected rent to match or exceed that. If rental rates stayed strong, they'd break even or profit. But with rent growth stalling and costs continuing to rise, many landlords now find their properties are losing money each month. They're underwater, meaning the income isn't enough to offset the cost of owning the home. Short-term rentals are especially vulnerable. Owners of short-term rentals, like Airbnb properties, are facing even harsher realities. When travel rebounded after pandemic restrictions lifted, many people thought they'd strike gold with vacation rentals. The dream was earning $50,000 or more per year from a single property. But that's not how it's panning out. Travel patterns have shifted, competition has grown, and many cities have implemented tougher regulations on short-term rentals. The result? Earnings from these properties have dropped, sometimes by half or more, and the costs of ownership haven't budged. Mortgage payments, taxes, and upkeep are still high, leaving many owners in a tight financial spot. They're realizing that these high-return properties might not be worth the stress, cost, and unpredictability. Home prices aren't rising as expected. Real estate values in many cities have also flattened or declined slightly, especially in areas that experienced extreme price appreciation during the pandemic. Landlords who bought near the top of the market were banking on continued appreciation. Some thought their $700,000 property would increase to $770,000 in a year, and maybe $850,000 shortly after. But a couple of years later, some homes are still worth $700,000, or worse, have dropped in value. This reality is tough to accept, particularly for investors who believed real estate was a guaranteed path to wealth. Rather than riding out the ups and downs, many are opting to sell, hoping to escape before values drop further. Ironically, by doing this, they may turn a short-term dip into an actual financial loss. Patience is key in real estate, but not everyone has it, especially those lured in by promises of fast, easy money. It's way more work than they thought. Another major factor pushing landlords to sell is the sheer amount of effort involved in owning rental property. Social media glamorizes real estate investing, showing influencers kicking back while rent checks roll in. But anyone with real experience knows it's far from hands-off. Being a landlord is more like taking on a demanding part-time job. Emergency repairs, maintenance, tenant issues all fall on your shoulders. Imagine getting a frantic call on Thanksgiving because the water heater burst. Now, instead of enjoying time with family, you're scrambling to find a plumber. And what if a tenant stops paying rent? You're suddenly thrust into a crash course in eviction laws, court filings, and legal fees. Even routine upkeep can snowball. Forgetting to change an air filter could mean a broken HVAC system, and a multi-thousand-dollar repair. Then there's the less obvious but necessary work. Flushing water heaters, cleaning gutters, maintaining landscaping, replacing batteries and smoke detectors, and preventing pests. It all costs time and money. Tenant turnover isn't just inconvenient, it's expensive. When a tenant moves out, the work and costs don't stop there. You'll likely need to repaint, replace worn carpets or flooring, deep clean, and relist the unit. You may face weeks or even months without rent while screening new tenants. Add in the time it takes to verify income, evaluate credit, follow fair housing laws, and you've got another job on your plate. You can hire a property manager to offload some of the responsibility, but that usually costs about 10% of your rental income. Repairs still need oversight, even if you're not doing the work yourself. That means coordinating with painters, cleaners, contractors, and vendors, all of whom need to be vetted, managed, and paid. Short-term rentals mean constant stress. If you think long-term rentals are a lot of work, short-term rentals are an entirely different beast. With guests rotating every few days, the wear and tear and the headaches add up fast. Imagine this. A guest breaks your couch, and you've got 2 hours to replace it before the next one arrives. Or someone leaves the place trashed, dirty dishes, stained linens, food everywhere. Now you're either rushing to clean it yourself or paying double for emergency services. All that just to avoid a bad review. Even once guests arrive, they bombard you with messages. How do I turn on the light? Why won't the TV remote work? The washer keeps filling with water. Suddenly you're on call like a hotel concierge, only without the team of staff. Maintenance surprises can kill profit. Many new landlords underestimate the true cost of maintenance. Sure, they budget for a few minor fixes, but real-world problems rarely follow a neat schedule. A simple leak under the kitchen sink might seem minor, until you realize it's been dripping for months. Now there's water damage, mold, and ruined cabinets. That $150 plumber visit turns into a $5,000 remediation and repair project. That one issue could erase years of cash flow. Or take the HVAC system. Replacing one can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. Roof replacements, which might be needed every 15 to 30 years, can cost $10,000 or more. If you aren't setting aside enough reserve funds for these major expenses, your investment can quickly become a liability. The biggest mistake: lack of patience. The downfall of many novice real estate investors isn't the market itself, it's their own impatience. They entered the game during a high-growth period, fueled by fast returns and media hype. But now that the boom has settled into a slower, steadier pace, they're jumping ship. Here's the truth. A stabilizing real estate market is actually good for investors. When prices and rents grow at a moderate, predictable pace, it becomes easier to plan, budget, and manage your assets. It reduces risk, and it rewards long-term thinking. Real wealth in real estate usually isn't built during the booms. It's made by holding properties over time, reinvesting earnings, and weathering the ups and downs. The landlords who stick around, who stay disciplined and focus on quality property management, are often the ones who end up with strong portfolios and lasting income. Final thought: don't be fooled by the hype. The real estate market isn't crashing, it's just calming down. For patient investors with a long-term view, that's a great thing. If you're thinking about getting into property investing, tune out the hype and understand what you're really signing up for. Yes, real estate can be profitable, but it takes time, effort, and resilience. The key to success isn't chasing quick wins. It's about making smart, sustainable decisions and playing the long game.